This is Steve Ridgel, and I want to tell you the story of my friend Thomas. Thomas's wife, Kellie, was basically raised by Ron and Joan Smith, our ranch neighbors and active members at Hillcrest. Kellie's an active member at Hillcrest. They have a precious little boy, Levi, who's, I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe, and so very sweet, very shy. So Thomas, though, never really came to church much. Now, Thomas is a good guy. He'd go down at many times. We've worked cattle together, and Thomas comes and works around the ranch for Ron, and a really good guy. Well, about, I don't know, 6 months to a year ago, Thomas started coming to church because one of the things that Ron told Thomas is the odds of Levi growing up and being at church will be way greater if you come to church with him. And so Thomas started coming to church all the time. I love that about Thomas because what it showed me is that Thomas really cares about Levi's future, not just physically and that well-being, but he really cares about Levi's future spiritually. And so, I'd ask Thomas from time to time, hey, do you want to talk about Jesus? You want to talk about your journey? And I never got much response. So on Easter Sunday, we baptized several people at Hillcrest. And afterward in our secret class, I was teaching that Sunday, and I was talking about the people baptized, and I said, yes, we studied over at Brahms, and yes, we studied over at McDonald's, and yeah, we had our conversations at Rosa's. And so Thomas wasn't even there that Sunday. He was sick, but Kellie popped off and said, well, how about you take us to Red Lobster? I found out later that's her favorite place to eat. So I laughed and I said, you know what, if Thomas will talk to me, I'll take you to Red Lobster. Well, she went home and told Thomas, and she said, I've talked him into talking to you. And so I really did. Next time I saw Thomas, I said, hey, do you really want to visit? And he said, yes. Well, we ended up not going to Red Lobster, met up at the church, had pizza, and talked about Jesus. Thomas had a mom that's loved Jesus for a long time and cares about him. His dad got active in church about 7 or 8 years ago and has intently prayed for Thomas, told Thomas he hopes that he will follow that pattern and not wait too long. Ron's consistently prayed for Thomas and encouraged Thomas and spoke to Thomas. But instead of basically both his two dads, Ron and his own physical dad, he wanted to talk to somebody a little removed from the situation. So that was me. So we visited a lot about Thomas bought in quickly that Jesus died for my sins and was raised from the dead. But Thomas is a pretty shy guy, and he has some questions about his baptism. So it started with, who has to be there? And my first answer was, well, you. And he did acknowledge that was funny. He said, well, I know that. But I said, no, anybody else. Anybody you want, as few or as many as you want. Well, he thought about it and wrestled with it a while, prayed about it, decided he wanted to be baptized on a Saturday morning with his parents, his sister, Ron and Joan, my wife, Marcia, and I, and of course his wife, Kellie and Levi. And so we baptized Thomas. And then he said, you can announce it at church if you want to. Okay. Then, if you want to do a blessing over me, you can. And if the elders want to call me and bless me, they can. And I just watched that unfold with Thomas. And so I'm delighted to say that Thomas is now my brother in Christ. And what an example for Levi, who will remember all of his life watching his dad be born again. And I'm confident that Thomas's example is going to help a lot of people. So thanks to his parents, thanks to Ron and Joan, thanks to his wife Kellie, thanks to our church, and thanks mostly to Thomas, who decided he wanted to follow Jesus.